Her bloodshot eyes stared at Heshi, and she suddenly screamed and rushed toward her. It's you. It's you who framed my Feishua. Nalan Heshi, I will kill you to revenge for my Feishua.
Ah.
However, before she rushed to Heshi, Mrs. Nalan was kicked flying by Qing Wan. Although Qing Wan didn't add spiritual power to her feet, the strength was extremely high, and Mrs. Nalan had a very low level of cultivation. In addition, her body was weak due to repeated troublesome incidents. She flew to the wall, spouting a lot of blood. Nalan Yurong's eyes widened. She couldn't believe that Nalan Heshi actually allowed her maid to beat Mrs. Nalan. Mrs. Nalan was now unconscious. She didn't want to bring her over here, initially. But thinking of Mrs. Nalan's identity as Heshi's stepmother, she still asked Mrs. Nalan to take the pill to suppress the madness and bring her over. However, she didn't expect Nalan Heshi to be so bold. She raised her eyebrows, pointed at Heshi, and shouted sharply, Nalan Heshi, are you crazy? She is your stepmother. You allow your maid to beat your stepmother. Are you not afraid of being condemned by God for offending and disobeying the elder? Heshi looked at her disdainfully. You, Nalan Yurong, are not afraid of being condemned by God for doing all the bad things. Why should I be afraid of? Nalan Yurong felt a little thump in her heart. What did Nalan Heshi know? Did she know that when I was young I caught a lot of innocent people to test medicine in order to learn how to refine the shuijia pill taught by Master? Or did she know I committed the incident that Mammy Chen's cultivation was ruined for being wronged, harming her master? Nalan Yurong was shocked. When she saw Heshi's half-smiling face, she burst into anger. Nalan Heshi, what nonsense are you talking about? Don't think that you can sit back and relax with King of Hell supporting you. A strong murderous intent flashed in her eyes, and she coldly looked at the shameless girl in front of her. Nalan Heshi, if you die in this Xinu house, I will strip off your clothes and put you together with the corpse of the servants. By the time, I will tell the people of King of Hell Mansion that you, slutty bitch, commit adultery with the servants, and you commit suicide due to shame for being caught on the spot. Do you really think Kingo of Hell Mansion will retrieve a dirty corpse by then? Heshi said, oh, looked at Nalan Yurong with a half-smile, raised her eyebrows, and said, does elder sister want to kill me? You can try it. Nalan Yurong's eyes shrank, and she waved her hand. The Meridian stage martial artists behind her immediately rushed up and charged toward Heshi fiercely. But how would Qing Wan let them succeed? The long sword in her hand was launched, and her figure flew up. Clang! She alone blocked the attacks of several Meridian stage martial artists. Nalan Yurong looked at Qing Wan's terrifying skills and frowned fiercely. When she looked at Nalan Heshi again, she was already full of jealousy. This maid is also given to you by King of Hell, right? The people of King of Hell Mansion are really powerful. However, one person can't fight with numerous people. Nalan Heshi, now no one can save you.
Die now.
As soon as Nalan Yurong spoke, her spiritual power spiked. The power of the Meridian stage burst out. In an instant, a huge water snake rose into the sky and rushed toward Heshi. Heshi watched as the oncoming turbulent water snake, and she was about to make a move, but there was a small black figure appeared in front of her suddenly. Little Golden Dragon's cocky voice could be heard. Boss, it's not your turn to deal with this kind of character. Let me deal with her. As it said, it suddenly shot out a fire dragon. Although the fire dragon was not big, it completely evaporated the water snake when it wrapped around the water snake. Nalan Yurong's face was full of shock. Didn't they say that Nalan Heshi has no cultivation? Then how can she subdue spiritual pet? To subdue a high-level spiritual, when signing a contract, it is easy to be backfired by the contract, making the martial artist seriously hurt. Nalan Heshi doesn't have any cultivation. How can she subdue this spiritual pet? Could it be that His Royal Highness King of Hell helped her? When he thought of this, Nalan Yurong's beautiful face was distorted. Everything in her heart and mind was replaced by hatred. How can Nalan Heshi, a bitch, be favored by the King of Hell? Why is it not me, Nalan Yurong? How am I incomparable to Nalan Heshi? After the water snake was put out, Little Golden Dragon triumphantly waved its tail at Heshi. Boss, Am I good? As soon as it spoke, the other two also popped out of the void. The first one who came out was Little Dumb Cow. It had always been dumb and silly. When it came out of the void, it didn't maintain its balance well, and it directly fell with its head touching the ground first. With short hooves swaying in midair, he took a long time to roll over and get up. However, before he could stand firm, he saw a pink piglet falling from the sky and banging on it again, directly using him as a cushion. Little Egg raised his head, met Hushy's gaze, and immediately said with a cute smile, "Mom, we're here to help you." As he said, he stood up quickly and grinned at Nalan Yurong in front of him. Really annoying, there are so many old women in this place. You all are obviously old and ugly, but you still covet my daddy. Such a character like you. How can you be comparable to my mom? You aren't even worthy of holding my mom's shoes. Humph. Little Dumb Cow crawled up in a stagger, trying to learn from Little Egg and staring at Nalan Yurong. But it was born with a pair of small green bean eyes. No matter how it glared, it didn't have any deterrence. It made it look more silly instead, making people couldn't help but want to laugh. Little Golden Dragon wagged his tail in the air and said, "What are you two guys doing? Didn't you see how handsome I just appeared? You two stupid look has just ruined my just handsome image. Go back. Quickly go back." Hushy touched her forehead. "Little dragon, do you think your dumb and cute Tyrannosaurus look is much better than them? I don't want to." Little Egg held his little paw and said angrily, "I also want to help my mother beat the bad guys. You are not allowed to drive us back, little dragon, or I won't play with you in the future." Only then the little golden dragon shut up dejectedly, but he still couldn't help mumbling, "Then you guys don't hold me back? I finally got a chance to perform in front of the boss." Nalan Yurong looked at Hushy's three little pets, who were dumb and young. She couldn't see the slightest spiritual power fluctuations all over her body. Suddenly, she changed from shock to ridicule. "You see, what kind of owner will have what kind of pets? A bunch of waste. Today, I will let you see what is a real spiritual pet." After speaking, Nalan Yurong made a seal on her left hand, and a majestic black panther appeared beside her instantly. Hushy recognized at a glance. This was a rank 4 magical beast, and it was also the Black Mountain Panther that was rather powerful among the rank 4 magical beasts. Its specialty was fast speed and mastered wind and thunder element spells. As soon as the Black Panther appeared, it immediately roared in Hushy's direction with murderous intent in its eyes. Little Egg covered his nose and complained, "It smells so smelly. Really, what kind of owner will have what kind of spiritual pet? Never mind the master is so old and ugly, even her spiritual pet is so stinky. Carrying such a stinky pet, aren't you afraid of being stunk to death?" Little Golden Dragon also sneezed. He said disgustingly, "It's so stinky. Let's get rid of it quickly, so as not to make our nose suffers." Little Dumb Cow was silly. Seeing that Little Egg and Little Golden Dragon were covering their noses, it slowly stretched out its paws to cover its nose too. A word came out of its mouth, "Stinky." Little Dumb Cow opened its mind later than Little Egg and Little Golden Dragon. It was only after being Hushy's spiritual pet and drinking the 9th secluded spirit spring, it gradually gained a little wisdom. It could speak a few words now. Of course, compared to the talkative Little Egg and Little Golden Dragon, it was totally incomparable. Nalan Yurong was trembling all over by their disgusting words. She waved her hand at the Black Panther and said angrily, "Tear all these wastes to pieces for me." After the Black Panther got the order, its figure instantly turned into lightning, rushing toward the three little ones. There was a gust of wind in the room, and there was also the crackling sound of thunder and lightning. The Black Panther was already agile, and with the acceleration of wind and thunder and lightning, it was as fast as lightning. Seeing that the three little ones were too late to react and were about to be torn to pieces by the Black Panther, Nalan Yurong smiled triumphantly. However, the next moment, her smile froze at the corner of her mouth. There was only a loud bang in her ear. The Black Panther's figure in the air was suddenly bounced away. The huge Black Panther slammed into the shelf, and the things on the shelf fell to pieces. The Black Panther also convulsed on the ground. It got up in a stagger after a while, but its sobbing sound was full of pain. On the side of the three little ones, Little Dumb Cow used the protective shield to knock the panther away. Only now it reacted with hindsight. In fact, it activated its protective shield with its instinct. It didn't intend to use such a rough method to punish the Black Panther. Little Dumb Cow was depressed, but Little Egg ran over and touched its head. He praised him like an adult. "Little Cow, good job." Little Dumb Cow suddenly turned from sad to joy. It had a happy face, which made Little Golden Dragon feel depressed. Nalan Yurong was stunned. They are obviously just three palm-sized pets without spiritual power fluctuations. Why can they knock back my spiritual pet? My Black Mountain Panther is the spiritual pet of the peak of the rank 4 magical beasts. Ordinary Meridian stage martial artists are definitely not its opponent. Nalan Yurong stared at the Black Mountain Panther on the side and screamed, "Get up now. If you don't punish them, I won't let you go after we go back." The Black Mountain Panther whimpered. Its body trembled, then it had to cast the gale again and rushed toward the three little ones. This time, Little Golden Dragon stopped in front of Little Egg and Little Dumb Cow. When the Black Mountain Panther rushed to his front, he released his powerful dragon demeanor. The dragon and the phoenix were the kings of the beasts. The golden flying dragon was even the high-rank noble among the dragons. Wherever the dragon goes, all beasts will prostrate and worship the dragon. The Black Mountain Panther's body suddenly stopped in the air and began to tremble violently. Afterward, it seemed to be possessed. It slowly bent its knees, crawling in front of the little golden dragon and making a murmur of surrendering sound. Little Golden Dragon was very satisfied with the dragon demeanor he released for the first time after being reborn. He flew a little forward and landed beside the Black Panther. He then said while looking up proudly, "You're a magical beast in the mountains. Why follow this vicious and shameless woman and let her use you? You even help her to do evil things?" The Black Mountain Panther made a whining sound as if telling something wronged and unwilling. Little Golden Dragon nodded twice as if showing kindness. "Well, since you are not willing, I will help you to get out of the possession of this woman." After speaking, he stretched out his paw, secretly bit one of his scales, then stuffed it into the Black Mountain Panther's mouth. As the scale entered the Black Mountain Panther's body, the Black Mountain Panther suddenly let out a long and stern cry. The black hairs all over its body erected. The next moment, the Black Mountain Panther jumped up into the sky, turned around, and stared at Nalan Yurong with a fierce look. At this moment, the majestic Black Panther in front of her was no longer her obedient pet, but a fierce beast that wanted to take her life. Nalan Yurong's eyes widened in horror, watching the scene before her in disbelief. She hadn't seen the action of Little Golden Dragon just now, so she couldn't understand why the little dragon just said a few words, and her pet panther rebelled against her. It even looked like wanting to eat her up. However, the Black Mountain Panther did not rush toward Nalan Yurong, but it turned around and whimpered twice to the Little Golden Dragon. It then broke through the roof, rose into the air, and disappeared in the sky. "Come back!" Nalan Yurong screamed. "You're my spiritual pet. Master, help me to subdue you with difficulty. How can you run away? You beast, come back now." What responded to her was the falling tiles from the roof and the whistling wind, as if mocking her for her stupidity and ignorance. Little Egg looked at Little Golden Dragon admiringly. His big eyes were gleaming. "Little Dragon, what did that stinky big panther say to you? You can actually understand the animal language? You are as good as Sister Xiaoli." Little Golden Dragon grabbed his dragon horn suddenly and laughed. "I don't understand. I just fooled the big black guy, but I didn't expect him to fall for it so easily. It must be that old woman is too annoying. That big black guy wanted to leave a long time ago. It just so happened that today I was kind and gave him a chance." The scales of the golden flying dragon had a powerful dragon demeanor. If the low-rank magical beasts consume it, it could strengthen the beast's aura in a short time and restrain the constraints of various arrays. Although the Black Mountain Panther had signed a master-servant contract with Nalan Yurong, Nalan Yurong's cultivation was too low. In addition, she subdued the black mountain panther with the help of the other, so it was unwilling. After it got the dragon scale, the black mountain panther immediately got rid of the restraint of the master-servant contract and escaped. As soon as Little Egg heard that little golden dragon could not understand animal language, he rolled his eyes and turned around with disgust to show his little butt. Little Dumb Cow also learned from him. It slowly turned around to show his butt to the little golden dragon. It made little golden dragon scream frantically, "Boss, look at them. It's too much. Boss, you quickly teach them a lesson." Hashi facepalmed. She really had the illusion that she had opened a kindergarten to raise a group of problematic children. Nalan Yurong saw that her black mountain panther's spiritual pet wasn't coming back, and her face was pale. She glared at Hashi, gritted her teeth, and slowly said, "Nalan Hashi, I think I have overestimated you again and again, but I didn't expect to underestimate you in the end. But do you think that with these funny pets, you can really escape from my hands? Stop dreaming." Hashi pushed aside the table, stood up, and said leisurely, "Who spares whose life? It's still uncertain yet." "Okay, very good. I will let you know today what is to die without an intact corpse." Nalan Yurong took out a pure black magic weapon similar to a compass as she spoke. As spiritual power was injected into the magic artifact, a cloud of black mist slowly formed above her head. Then it became larger and larger. With the appearance of the black cloud, the light in the entire room became dark. The air was also cold. The hole that was hit by the black mountain panther was also filled by the black cloud. In the room, the black cloud shrouded everyone, including Hashi and Nalan Yurong. In the next moment, a patter of rain began to fall below the black cloud. However, what was frightening was that these raindrops were not transparent water, but black liquid. The servants of Nalan Mansion, who was fighting with Qing Wan, suddenly screamed horribly when they encountered the falling raindrops. As soon as their clothes touched the raindrops, they were completely corroded. And their skin, when it touched the raindrops, it made a sizzling noise as if it was burning. In just a few moments, these martial artists of the Meridian stage were wounded, and their bodies were covered with bloody holes corroded by the black rain. "Miss, save me, save us. Give me the cure." Those people rushed toward Nalan Yurong. Although she was also in the rain seemed to be rejected by the compass in her hand and avoided her, so she had not suffered any damage so far. Seeing the miserable appearances of those servants calling for her help, Nalan Yurong didn't see the slightest pity in his eyes. She ruthlessly avoided the martial artists who rushed over and said coldly, "You can die under this death rain disc, peerless magic weapons. It is your honor. You should rest in peace." "Nalan Yurong, you vicious woman. We came here to help you." "Nalan Yurong, how can you treat us this way?" Nalan Yurong snorted. "After I smash Nalan Hashi into pieces, I will bury you all well. It is an honor for you all to die for me." After speaking, the compass in her hand turned abruptly, and the patter of rain suddenly became denser. Even Mrs. Nalan, who was overturned in a corner and unconscious, was also affected. It was just that she woke up in a muddle-headed manner, but she didn't seem to feel that half of her body was corroded by the rain at all. She even made a silly laughter. She had completely lost her mind. Qing Wan opened the defensive magic weapon at the first moment when she noticed that the rain had fallen, protecting Hashi and the three little ones under it. But seeing the horrible state of Nalan Yurong's guards, she still frowned. "Miss, this rain is indeed a bit powerful. I can already feel the magic weapon being corroded, and its spiritual power has become thinner and thinner. I'm afraid I can't hold for long. Miss, you run away first. I will stay here and hold." "Run? I have Death Rain Disc in my hand. Where can Nalan Hashi, a bitch, escape?" "Ha ha ha." Nalan Yurong laughed arrogantly. "Nalan Hashi, I advise you to stop struggling. The poison in this Death Rain Disc is mixed into the rain. It was refined by my master personally. So far, no one had survived after contacting this poison. So, What if you use high-grade magic weapons to resist? This kind of poison can penetrate and corrode anything. It is just a matter of time that this magic weapon becomes a common item after its spirit being corroded. Nalan Yurong stared at Hashi closely, eager to see the expression of fear and pleading on her face. She continued, people who have been poisoned will see their flesh and skin melt bit by bit. Even if you get one drop of it, it will spread non-stop until your whole body corrodes. You will die in horrible pain. Nalan Hashi, if you are afraid, it is better to kill yourself now, lest you die without an intact body. Ha ha. Hashi glanced at Mrs. Nalan on the side, raised her eyebrows, and said, your own mother has also been poisoned by this virulent poison. Are you not afraid of her poison spreading and die? Nalan Yurong snorted, her eyes full of disgust. Now this Nalan family is not a help to me, but a burden. I'm a disciple of Master Shukong and a member of the Doctors' Association. If people know that my mother is a lunatic, how can I gain a foothold in the Doctors' Association in the future? Not to mention, my sister even married a stupid pig. They will only hinder me. Humph. When I get Juka Lingshan Pill's prescription, Nalan family doesn't need to exist anymore. Tell me, will I care about the life and death of a crazy woman? Even Qing Wan was ruthless. She was stunned by the selfishness and indifference of Nalan Yurong. For the sake of her own future, this woman completely disregards the life and death of her mother and sister. Such a woman even dares to think of marrying my master, and it is disgusting to hear it. Nalan Yurong glanced at Qing Wan's magic weapon that was being corroded more and more, and she couldn't help laughing. Nalan Hashi, I see how long you can hold on. I'll stand here, waiting to see your pitiful scarred body. Oh, is it? Hashi raised the corner of her mouth, and her eyes were filled with disdain. She said slowly, it's just a mere heart-corroding mushroom, 1,000 gold vine, poison arrow weed, the poison that is configured. Wants to kill me? Haha, Nalan Yurong, are you looking down on others too much, or are you too stupid? What? Nalan Yurong's eyes widened in disbelief. How do you know that? Before she finished speaking, Hashi took out a bottle of powder and gave it to Little Golden Dragon. Little Golden Dragon smiled immediately after hearing Hashi's words. It swallowed the medicine powder, then it started spraying water against the black cloud. After a while, the black cloud was still black, but the raindrops had turned into a transparent color, and there was no more corrosive effect. Nalan Yurong felt that there was no more corrosive toxicity in the falling rain, and she couldn't help screaming, "What did you do?" Hashi looked at her disdainfully with a faint smile. "Can't you see what I have done? You dare to use this little trick to embarrass yourself? You even say that no one can explain it? He, the legendary Master Shukong, is just so. Nalan Yurong couldn't believe her eyes. Is this ugly woman in front of me really Nalan Hashi? Isn't she a coward and incompetent trash that let others trample on her? Why can she crack the poison made by my master? When did Nalan Hashi become so scary? Nalan Yurong suddenly remembered that she heard her father and Nalan Xian secretly discussing several times, saying that they must get some kind of relic from Nalan Hashi. Could it be that the relic made that trash, Nalan Hashi, so powerful? Perhaps His Royal Highness King of Hell would look at this bitch differently because he wanted to get the relic in her hands? Thinking of this, Nalan Yurong couldn't help but get excited. If I get the relic in Nalan Hashi's hand, does it mean that His Royal Highness King of Hell will look at me differently? Nalan Yurong took a deep breath, put away Death Rain Disc, and looked straight at Hashi. Nalan Hashi, you were still a trash a year ago, but now you can even cure my master's poison. Tell me honestly, is there any treasure in your hands? Hashi looked at her as if she was looking at an idiot. What are you? You think I'll do as you ask? Nalan Yurong's face was distorted for a while. What she hated most was Nalan Hashi's indifferent and contemptuous eyes, like she didn't put her in her eyes at all. I'm Nalan Yurong, the proudest daughter-son of the Nalan family. How can Nalan Hashi look down on me? How? Nalan Yurong gritted her teeth and said fiercely, Sister, let me give you an advice. It's best not to use the little bit of chips in your hand to show off your power. You think, with your half-year experience in the poisoning method, you can compare with my master? If I'm serious, you can't even fight back. If you are sensible, hand over the treasure in your hand, and I can still let you die with an intact corpse. Otherwise, Hashi chuckled lightly. Elder sister might as well take out all your trump cards. Third sister really wants to try them. According to the rumors, Master Shukong should have represented the pinnacle of the Miluo continent's doctor community, right? What Hashi said was not bluffing. She really wanted to see how good this another world medicine and poison master was. Good. Since you are looking for death, then I will fulfill you. As soon as Nalan Yurong spoke, the death rain disc appeared in her hand again, and it was spinning quickly. It was just that this time it was not black clouds that appeared, but blood-red thunderclouds the size of a fist. The thunderclouds floated in the air with crackling noises one by one, and the air was faintly filled with a bloody and foul smell. As the thunderclouds contacted a table in Xianu House, a ping-pong noise sounded. Immediately afterward, the table seemed to have been burnt down by fire, turning into powder in the blink of an eye. Qing Wan next to Hashi took a deep breath and murmured, "This is Beauty Meltbone, one of Miluo continent's top poisons." It is said that as long as it is a martial artist who has not reached the nascent soul stage, one drop is enough to kill the martial artist. His bones and flesh will shrink quickly, then he will turn to ashes in a short time. Nalan Yurong laughed when she heard Qing Wan's words. "You are quite knowledgeable. This is one of the most powerful poisons developed by the Doctors Association. I didn't want to use this to deal with you. It's not because Beauty Meltbone is rare and precious, but Beauty Meltbone let you die too quickly and comfortably. I really don't want that to happen. Haha." Qing Wan's eyes were obviously anxious, and she said in a tremble, "Miss, what should I do now? How about I protect you to rush out desperately? I have the best defense magic weapon given by the master. Even if my cultivation is ruined, I will get Miss out of here safely." However, Hashi's face did not have the panic that she should have. She looked at the fist-sized thunderclouds floating in the air with a half-smile, and her water spiritual power turned into filaments and probed out, touching these thunderclouds seemingly. The water spiritual power was swallowed up as soon as it hit the thundercloud. But Hashi's face showed a faint smile. "Miss, don't hesitate anymore, let's go," Qing Wan shouted anxiously. Nalan Yurong laughed triumphantly when she heard Qing Wan's words. "Do you think you can still leave now? Stop dreaming?" "Of course we can't go," Hashi sneered. "But why should we go? Qing Wan, you haven't seen my way of healing and poisoning, right?" Qing Wan said. "Huh?" Her eyes widened in surprise. Little Golden Dragon and Little Egg, who had been silent for a while, started chatting immediately. They weren't anxious at all. "Boss, let this shameless, arrogant old woman see how good you are." "Yes, that's right. My mom is very skillful. Who does she think she is? Mom can defeat her in an instant. What kind of stuff is this? My mother can solve it in minutes." Qing Wan kept her mouth wide open. She said in her heart, "This is Beauty Meltbone. Miluo continent's one of the most poisonous toxin. Even Wu Xing will have a trouble dealing with it. Why are Miss and her spiritual pets so calm?" As she was thinking about it, a purple vine appeared in Hashi's hand. The purple leaves on the vine swayed gently, as if expressing excitement. Hashi reached out and touched the top of Purple Abyss Vine, and she chuckled. "Don't worry, this Beauty Meltbone is still kind of powerful. If you just go on it like that, maybe you will be corroded into ashes. Let me coat with a protective film on your vines first." After speaking, Hashi's palm had some light golden powder on her palm. She stretched out her hand and gently wiped it on the vines of Purple Abyss Vine. The original purple vines were dyed with glittering color. Purple Abyss vines suddenly made a rustling sound as if expressing uncomfortable and itchy. Little Egg clapped and laughed. "Auntie Little Purple has turned golden. She looks good. Shouldn't we call her Auntie Little Golden from now on?" Purple Abyss Vine suddenly became even more unhappy, shaking her leaves in protest. Hashi patted it and smiled. Okay, go. Go and swallow up all the energy in those bloody thunderclouds. When you deal with these thunderclouds, I will remove the golden powder for you. The energy in these thunderclouds is delicious and suitable for you. If you don't eat it, I will destroy them all. Purple Abyss Vine immediately stopped protesting. She raised her long purple gold vines, excitedly rushing toward the nearest few thunderclouds. Seeing Hushy's actions and the purple vines that appeared out of thin air, Nalan couldn't help but sneered contemptuously. Idiot, you think this little demonic plant can resist the corrosion of the beauty meltbone? Ha ha ha, stop dreaming. Seeing that the bloody thunderclouds gathered more and more, they had already surrounded Nalan Hushy, sealing off her way to retreat. Nalan couldn't help being more excited. Soon, you will become a pile of ashes under beauty meltbone. However, before Nalan hadn't finished speaking, her eyes widened suddenly, and she let out a sharp roar. How is this possible? The purple vine went inside the bloody thunderclouds. But it didn't turn into ashes by the toxin. It even devoured the thunderclouds completely. After swallowing the thunderclouds, the excited main vine of Purple Abyss Vine trembled. It's so delicious. It is even more delicious than those demonic plants in 100 Herb Mist. After Purple Abyss Vine swallowed a thundercloud, it turned around excitedly and started to swallow the second, third. As Nalan and Qingwan were astounded, Purple Abyss Vine swallowed up the bloody thunderclouds created by Death Rain Disc in just a few seconds. Impossible! Impossible! How is this possible? Nalan kept backing away while screaming, "This is Beauty Meltbone, can even devour the rank 6 demonic plant completely. Why can a vine swallow thunderclouds?" Qingwan's face was also full of disbelief. She couldn't believe her eyes at all. When she looked at Hushy again, her gaze was not just worship, but the fanatic's enthusiasm for watching an idol. Our princess is really amazing. No wonder even Qinglong, who always alienates himself, said that the only person on Miluo continent who can heal Master is our princess. When Purple Abyss Vine returned to Hushy, all the vines seemed to become fatter. They couldn't even shake. But she was still shaking her leaves happily, and there was a grunting sound from time to time, as if it was belching. Hushy didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she felt the excitement of Purple Abyss Vine. She gently touched her vines, and the golden powder instantly disappeared without a trace. Nalan stared at Hushy. Finally, her arrogant voice seemed to have a tremor of fear. "Nalan Hushy, who are you? Why can you neutralize the beauty meltbone? What did your demonic plant just do?" Hushy raised her eyebrows and looked at her with a light smile. Her eyes were full of seeming contempt. "Nalan, don't you want to know how capable am I? Today I will open your eyes and let you know what is the real poison." As soon as she spoke, Hushy's wrist turned over, and dozens of thin, invisible needles appeared on her fingertips. Unlimited silver needles were launched toward Nalan. The silver needle was so slender that it was almost invisible, but Nalan seemed to be able to feel the cold and bloody smell in the air. Extreme fear surged in Nalan's heart. Hushy can even crack beauty meltbone. How terrifying it is if she uses her poison. If I'm poisoned by this poison, wouldn't I be utterly dead? No. I'm so young, so beautiful, and so talented. How can I die? Nalan was panicked, but the invisible needles were in front of her. Her mind went blank. She grabbed Mrs. Nalan by the side and put her in front without thinking. "Ah!" Mrs. Nalan, who was originally crazy, made a sharp scream. All of the invisible needles landed on her body. Later, she was quickly thrown aside like some terrible garbage by Nalan. Mrs. Nalan's body twitched violently, and her cloudy eyes suddenly became clear. She looked at Nalan in disbelief, the eldest daughter whom she spoiled for a lifetime. Nalan was looking at Nalan Hushy with horror and resentment, but she batted an eye on her biological mother. Mrs. Nayland opened her mouth with difficulty and muttered, Yurong, how can you? However, before she finished speaking, she suddenly let out a painful moan. Itchy. It's so itchy. Immediately afterward, she began to scratch her whole body frantically, her face, neck, hands, and even the clothes she had worn on her body were torn apart vigorously. Her long nails scratched into the flesh without stopping. Only a moment later, Mrs. Nayland's entire face was badly mutilated with flesh and blood from her scratches. There was almost no intact skin left on her whole body. Especially when she couldn't catch her back, she kept rubbing and rolling on the ground, making a stern sound in her mouth. The horror and miserable was indescribable. Nayland Yurong was shocked by the scene in front of her. She imagined that if the person who had been poisoned just now was herself, wouldn't all her beauty and appearance be ruined? She took a deep breath. Her gaze looking at Nayland Hashi was not just hate, but a deep fear. Hashi looked at her with a sneer. Nayland Yurong, you just asked me just now whether I should get God's retribution for hitting my stepmother. Nayland Yaru is your mother. You actually used her as a shield. Aren't you afraid of God's retribution? So, what about that? Nayland Yurong gritted her teeth. Her voice was trembling, but her tone was full of indifference. I'm the best child of Nayland family and the hope for the future of Nayland family. She is just a crazy madam without any power. There is no need to think about whether whose life is more important. She is my mother. She naturally has to give up her life for me. What's more, if you didn't try to kill me, how did my mother end up like this? Nayland Hashi, you vicious bitch. You dare to complain that to me first? Nayland Yurong said with great joy, but she did not see tears in the eyes of her mother, who was rolling on the ground. Her eyes were full of disappointment. Hashi was amused by the speech of this elder sister. If she wants to kill me, I can't fight back? If I fight back, I'm a vicious bitch? The logic of the Nayland family is still shameless. Hashi was about to speak when suddenly Nayland Jing's majestic voice came from outside the door. What happened? What's so noisy? I can even hear it in the front yard? XINU house had just broken the roof, and there was another fierce fight. Of course, the people at Nayland Mansion would hear the movement. Moreover, Hashi had no intention of covering it up. Nayland Yurong saw Nayland Jingza as if she had seen a savior and said with sobs, Father, save mother quickly. Nayland Hashi actually poisoned her and threatened to kill me. Nayland Jingza, who had just entered the room, immediately looked at his bloody wife, who was rolling and wailing on the ground, and he was shocked. He looked at Nayland Hashi viciously. You animal! You dare to attack your stepmother. Today I will not let you go. A triumphant smile flashed in Nayland Yurong's eyes, but she cried, Father, you quickly find a way to save mother. Don't you have Jukalingshan pill? That pill can cure all kinds of poison. It will definitely save mother. There was indeed a Jukalingshan pill on Nayland Jingza, which he left after refining today. But he originally planned to keep it for emergencies. Nayland Jingza didn't want to admit that she, the woman who was no different as a ghost, was his wife, let alone save her. But facing his daughter's request, he still took out the Jukalingshan pill. Nayland Yurong took Jukalingshan pill with a trace of greed and desire in her eyes. This time, apart from investigating Xingda Hall's situation, her master also asked her to find the Jukalingshan pill's formula from home. Master had promised that as long as she gets the Jukalingshan pill formula, she will be admitted to the Doctors Association's inner hall and be promoted to the 5th grade doctor. Even if this Jukalingshan pill was the future and hope of the Nayland family, for her own future, she, Nayland Yurong, must get it. Nayland Yurong lowered her eyebrows, kept the ambition in her eyes, knelt down, and helped Mrs. Nayland up. Although Mrs. Nayland looked like a horrible ghost now, her sanity at this time was clear. So, in her daughter's arms, she saw with her own eyes that Nayland Yurong secretly hid the Jukalingshan pill that she got from Nayland Jing's arms, but she gave her another very similar red medicinal pills. Mrs. Nayland moaned, and her heart was cold. There was a strong resentment in her heart. Nayland Yurong, This is my eldest daughter, whom I loved and cared for 20 years. Everything I did was for her, and I gave everything to her. But how does she treat me now? She didn't save her younger sister Nalan Faishua. She used me as a shield, and now she wanted to watch me die for a Juka pill. Nalan Yurong, how can you be so outrageously immoral and conscienceless? Mrs. Nalan's chest surged with anger. Her mind went blank suddenly, and she passed out. Nalan Yurong let go of Mrs. Nalan, who spat out white foam and blood and fainted, and exclaimed, "Mother! Mother!" She pretended to be panicked and looked at Nalan Jingza. "Father, what should I do? Even Juka pill can't cure the poison on Mother." Of course, Juka pill couldn't cure all the poisons in the world. At least the deadly poisons like blood drunk and beauty meltbone couldn't be cured. However, how many strange deadly poisons could there be in this world? Nalan Jingza's face became extremely ugly. She looked at Nalan Heshi with eyes full of gloominess and hatred. "Impudent child, how do you get the poison? Say it quickly." Heshi looked at the reaction of Nalan Jingza and Nalan Yurong, and she was amused. The two Nalan family members in front of them were really cold-blooded. One used her own mother as a shield, and the other saw that his wife was so miserable, but he cared more about the origin of the poison rather than saving her. Heshi didn't have to think to figure out why Nalan Jingza cared so much about the origin of the poison. Isn't he just want to get Enling Yue's relic from me? As for the life and death of Mrs. Nalan, no one cares, and no one asked her to cure the poison on Mrs. Nalan. Haha, it's so sad enough to think about it. Thinking of this, Heshi made a mocking smile and looked at Nalan Jingza coldly. "Why should I tell you?" Nalan Jingza stretched out his hand and patted it on the table. "Animal, I'm your father. Is that how you talk to your father?" Heshi raised her eyebrows, looked straight into Nalan Jingza's eyes, and then slowly uttered a few words. "My father? Nalan Jingza, are you worthy?"
"Bitch."
"Animal, who taught you to treat your father this way? Did you know that disobedience and unfilial piety will face the gods' retribution?" Heshi sneered, her tone full of indifference. "I face the gods' retribution for being unfilial to my biological father, but Nalan Jingza, are you my father?" What? Nalan Jingza shuddered, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Heshi stared tightly into his eyes, saying word by word, "Nalan Jingza, are you really my father? Are you worthy?" Being stared at by Heshi's faintly purple phoenix eyes, Nalan Jingza only felt a shock in his mind, as if he had seen the familiar figure saying with the same cold and alienated voice. Almost reflexively, he exclaimed, You know already?" As soon as Nalan Jingza said this, Nalan Yurong's eyes widened suddenly. She looked at Nalan Jingza in surprise, then looked at Nalan Heshi again. "What does father mean? Nalan Heshi is not a child of the Nalan family?"
"Who is she then?"
Heshi sneered. "Know what? Know that you are not my biological father? Know that you let Nalan Ziyun impersonate my own brother? Know that you do so much just to get my mother's relic from me?" As Heshi said, Nalan Jingza's face became more and more gloomy. His gaze stared at Heshi like a poisonous snake, and he slowly said, "You really knew it. You still acted in front of me. You as shameless as your mother." He took a deep breath and sneered, "Since you know it, you'd better hand over what I want. Don't say that you don't have your mother's relics. Otherwise, with your original waste and cowardly appearance, how can you have the glory you have nowadays?" Thinking of the medicine bottle he received a few days ago, he wished he could tear Nalan Heshi this bitch to pieces. "You bitch. Even if I'm not your biological father, I still raised you up after all. Your mother's relic, you would rather give it to outsiders like Shiyu and King of Hell than giving it to me. You are so ungrateful. Aren't you afraid of being punished by God's retribution?" Nalan Yurong, who was listening by the side, looked even more shocked. It could only be described as horrified. "Shiyu? Isn't she the owner of Xingda Hall? That amazing young doctor? Could it be that Nalan Heshi handed over the relic in her hands to Shiyu so that she can achieve what she has now? All the best quality pills in Xingda Hall come from the relic in the hands of Nalan Heshi? Thinking of this, Nalan Yurong was agitated. If I obtain this relic, doesn't it mean that I can be powerful in the Doctors' Association? Even His Royal Highness King of Hell will come to marry her. Hashi finally couldn't help laughing after hearing this. Nalan Jingza, you all conscienceless people of the Nalan family, why do you all always like to say God's retribution? If conscienceless people should be punished by God, shouldn't you all the first to be punished? Nalan Jingza's face was distorted for a while. He didn't know how much Hashi knew, but at this time, he dared not say more. However, Nalan Jingza immediately calmed down after thinking of another matter. He looked at Hashi coldly and said, "Hee, you can continue to be arrogant in front of me. But, you may not know, you are already inflicted by my poison. After 3 days at most, the poison on your body will be triggered. As long as you give me your mother's relic, I will give you the antidote. How about that?" Nalan Zhangzahaf looked at Hashi with a smile. His heart was filled with certainty. "I know you have gained some skills after getting your mother's relic, but this poison is definitely not something you can neutralize. This poison comes from Thousand Poison Valley. Except for Thousand Poison Valley owner, who has an antidote, it cannot be cured at all. With your level, you can only wait for death." Hashi sighed, watching Nalan Jingza and his daughter's eyes full of pity and sarcasm. She said leisurely, "Why poison again? It is even a poison that no one can cure. This poison is indeed interesting. The main medicine is intestine sever powder, which is obviously a poison, but it is colorless and tasteless, and there is no response after taking it. It can also delay the onset of the poison. The reason is that it is added with 1,000 phantoms gallon, right? 1,000 phantoms gallon. That is a demonic plant that has disappeared in the Miluo continent, and it may not even be found in the magical beast forest. You actually used such a precious medicine on me. I'm really flattered." Nalan Jingza was shocked. His eyes were full of horror. How do you know?" Nalan Jingza and Nalan Yurong were really father and son. They reacted in sync. Although the girl in front of her didn't look amazing, her phoenix eyes were gleaming as she slightly squinted. She was obviously a thin and weak girl, but she was looking down on him like a god looking down at a mortal. Nalan Jingza trembled all over. He almost couldn't help exclaiming, "Enlingyue." At this moment, he seemed to see the shadow of Enlingyue. The person who looked at him was no longer the useless Nalan Hashi, but the pretty and talented Enlingyue. Nalan Jingza took a step back subconsciously. Then, he recollected his mind. He squeezed his fist in anger, and he stared at Hashi fiercely. "Bitch, even if you realize that it is 1,000 phantasms gallon, there is no way for you to cure its poison. You better hand out the item." Otherwise, before Nalan Jingza finished speaking, there was a sudden rush of footsteps behind him. Master, it's not good." The butler rushed to Nalan Jingza with a head full of sweat. "Master, you should go to the front hall quickly." "What happened? Why are you making a fuss?" Nalan Jingza stared at the housekeeper sternly. But the housekeeper didn't seem to notice Nalan Jingza's annoyance at all. He just trembled with fear and panic. "Master, the people who bought Juku Lingshan pill before have come. They said that there is a problem with the medicinal pills they bought. They all come to ask for an explanation. Master, you should go and see now." Nalan Jingza exclaimed, "How is this possible?" His face was full of horror and confusion. "I have been refining the Juku Lingshan pill with the same method. How anything go wrong? If Juku Lingshan pill has a problem, what hope does my Nalan family have?" Nalan Jingza was anxious, and his hands shook slightly. "You go to the front hall to comfort the guests first, then tell them I will be there soon." After the butler left, Nalan Jingza gave Hashi a fierce look, and he said to the guards beside him, "Guard this XINU house properly. If this bitch escapes, I will let you all die without a place to bury." After he finished speaking, he hurried away, because he was so flustered that he almost tripped over his own feet when he left the courtyard. Hashi looked at Nalan Jingza's leaving back, and she couldn't help showing a mocking smile. Nalan Yurong, who was still in the room, stared greedily and hatefully at Hashi. Finally, she couldn't help asking, "Sister, what is the relic in your hand? Is it the best quality pill of Xingdahal?" Hashi turned around and looked at her with a half-smile. She didn't speak. Nalan Yurong clenched her fists, trying to maintain her kind and gentle expression. "Sister, you just heard what father said. You have been poisoned by him, and he will never let you go. Father has always been cruel. If you fall into his hands, even if you hand over your mother's relic, you will never end well. Why don't you give me that relic?" Hashi raised his eyebrows. "Give it to you?
Why?
Just because you just wanted to kill me over and over again?" Nalan Yurong's eyes flashed gloomily. She said coldly, "Nalan Hashi, you better don't be ungrateful. I ask you to hand over the relic because I want to help you. I'm the disciple of Master Shukong. Even father has to give face to me. Only I can save you now. If you hand over the relic obediently, I can still plead for you in front of my master. Maybe he will also accept you as a registered discipline. Then your future will be very promising. Otherwise, you will wait for the rest of your life to be locked in a dungeon by father and spend the rest of your life in darkness. Which choice is better? Don't you understand it?" Hashi shook her head and smiled. "Elder sister is right. After seeing you and Nalan Jingza, I also changed my mind a little. Are you going to give me your mother's relic?" Nalan Yurong thought she had finally compromised, and her whole body trembled with excitement. "Quick, show me those pill formulas." Hashi shook her head again and slowly said, "I initially planned to keep you and Nalan Jingza to slowly torment you two so that you two will die after suffering. But now I have changed my mind, Nalan Yurong. All your behaviors really disgust me. I have decided you will die now." As soon as she spoke, the sky full of purple vines whizzed up into the sky, enveloping this small room and isolating time and void. The guards left by Nalan Jingza were guarding outside the room, and Nalan Jingza had never thought that his elder daughter, who was at the peak of the meridian stage, would lose to Nalan Hashi, so he didn't let those guards in either. Now, the purple vines covered the hut, which meant an enchantment was set up. It isolated sound and movement. Even those guards looked inside. They couldn't notice any strange. Nalan Yurong's eyes widened in horror. Feeling the majestic spiritual power surging at her, she couldn't believe what she saw. Isn't that Nalan Hashi can't cultivate? Didn't she have no cultivation? Why is she exuding such a terrifying spirit pressure and showing such a powerful force? Nalan Yurong desperately backed away, trying to escape. She said in a trembled voice, "You, who exactly are you?" Hashi chuckled and did not answer. As her finger channeled spiritual power, the sharp purple vines suddenly rushed toward Nalan Yurong. Now Hashi's true strength had reached the terrifying advanced level of the gold core stage. Although her cultivation level was still the meridian stage, it was definitely not something that an ordinary meridian stage cultivator like Nalan Yurong could resist. She didn't even have the power to resist Hashi's one blow. There was a terrifying whipping sound in her ears, followed by a sharp pain in my shoulders, stomach, and hands and feet. Nalan Yurong couldn't even react. Then she was pierced by purple vines. Fear and despair overwhelmed her. Looking at Hashi, she felt for the first time the horror and cruelty of her sister she had looked down on before. Am I going to die here? Nalan Yurong felt that the purple vines that had pierced her body began to suck her flesh and blood, and this acknowledgement almost made her lose her mind. Do not. I don't want to die here. Let alone dying in the bitch. Nalan Hashi's hands. I still want to become famous in the Miluo continent. I also want to marry His Royal Highness King of Hell. I also want to become a pillar of the Doctors' Association. Ah. Nalan Yurong let out a scream. Then she suddenly crushed an inscribed jade slip in her hand. Immediately afterward, a violent light burst out of the inscribed jade slip, covering her body. As she frowned, she felt a magical and powerful array force in the inscribed jade slip. It was similar to the teleportation array. Now, Nalan Yurong was being taken to an unknown place by this force. Nalan Yurong stared at Nalan Hashi viciously, gritted his teeth, and said word by word, "You actually hurt me to such extent, Nalan Hashi. What you did to me today, one day I will let you pay the price for thousands of times. Bitch, just you wait." If she could, she didn't want to use this inscribed random teleportation jade slip at all. Although this inscribed jade slip could help her escape the danger of death, she didn't know where it would take her. It may be the abyss. It may be the 1,000-year-old ice field. It may be the magical beast forest. If she was randomly teleported to such a place, her survival rate wouldn't even have 30%. All this is because of the bitch, Nalan Hashi. Seeing Nalan Yurong, who had completely disappeared on the spot, Hashi frowned. She didn't expect Nalan Yurong to be able to run away. Inscribed teleportation jade slip? Last time in Breaking Spirit Mountain that Mr. Mu seemed to have used it too. I didn't expect there are so many applications of array in the Miluo continent. It seems that I have to find an opportunity to study it. Qing Wan leaned close to Hashi and frowned. Miss, is it okay to let Nalan Yurong run away? She already knows that Miss has cultivation, and she also knows that you are not the biological daughter of the Nalan family. If she spreads out the news and she is even Master Shukong's discipline, if she reports to her master, it doesn't matter, Hashi said lightly. I have never intentionally concealed my true identity. I just don't want too much troubles. As for the Doctors Association, even if there is no Nalan Yurong, as long as Xingda Hall is still working with Shin family to break their monopoly, one day they will still come to me. There is nothing to worry about. Qing Wan nodded, and her expression also relaxed. She remembered Nalan Jingza, who had just left in a hurry, and she couldn't help but curiously ask, Miss, what happened to Nalan Jingza's medicine? Isn't Zhuge Lingshan pill Nalan Jingza's unique secret? Why is there a problem now? Hashi glanced at her and said with a half-smile, Unique secret? Haha, it has become life-threatening curse now. You, and I just need to wait here to watch the show. Qing Wan's eyes lit up, looking forward to the next scandal of the Nalan family. By this time, Nalan Jingza had hurried to the front hall of the Nalan family. Before he entered the door, he saw a man wearing brocade rushing up and grabbing his collar. He angrily said, Nalan Jingza, the prince, ordered Zhuge Lingshan pill with you for the first time to use this medicinal pills to save my beloved wife. You actually used such a thing to fool me. Now that my beloved wife was dead, you will pay the price with your life. Nalan Jingza was grabbed by the collar as soon as he came in. He stumbled for being grabbed, and he felt very dizzy. All his ears were filled with angry roars from the people. There were also chattering sounds of other people behind him. Everyone was spitting on his face. He couldn't react to it for a while. When he finally recovered, he pushed away the person who was grabbing him, and he finally saw the person's looks. The person was the sixth prince of the Jinling Kingdom, Shengguan Heng, and the nephew of Zhu family Zhu Yichun. At this time, Shengguan Heng was full of anger, and the grace and composure he had when he helped Zhu Yichun to propose marriage together had disappeared. Shengguan Heng's words even made Nalan Jingza's heart stunned. Is there really something wrong with Zhuge Lingshan pill? This is impossible. It must be because the illness of the sixth prince's wife was not caused by poisoning. Thinking of this, Nalan Jingza cleared his throat and said sternly, Sixth prince, please don't simply put the blame on me. The Zhuge Lingshan pill of my Nalan family has never had a problem. How many people have been saved by these medicinal pills? Sixth prince, your wife could not be saved. Maybe it was because your concubine was not poisoned, but it was another strange disease. When the sixth prince heard this, he was furious and interrupted sharply. You dare to say that I'm blaming you? It's just that before the sixth prince finished speaking, an old man with a white beard came forward and smashed a red medicinal pill at Nalan Jingza's face. It was possible that the sixth prince's wife wasn't poisoned, but it wasn't my first time buying this medicine from miracle healer Nalan. Therefore, it is impossible to not know the authenticity of Zhuge Lingshan pill, right? Nalan Jingza, we give you face by calling you a miracle healer. Do you really think an old man like me is easy to bullied with? You actually used the fake medicinal pill to fool us. The red medicinal pill that was thrown at Nailin was picked up by him. When he looked up and saw the face of the person who was questioning, his heart beat. He spoke in a tremble. Elder Han, why did you say this? My Juke pill never has any problem with it. The white-bearded elder was one of the elders of the Shueyu sect. Although he was not yet at the nascent soul stage, he was already the pinnacle of the gold core stage. He had some status in the Shueyu sect, and he was definitely not someone Nailin could afford to offend. Hearing Nailin words, Elder Han sneered. You really think I'm an old fool? I still can't distinguish whether the medicinal pills are useful or not. Today, we will forget it if you give us the real Juke Lingshan pill as compensation. Otherwise, I will destroy your Nailin mansion. Elder Han's words caused other people who were deceived to curse loudly. You Nailin are so great. You actually dared to use fake pills to fool us. Are we really so easy to fool? Are you getting so old and useless that you can't even refine Juke Lingshan pill? If that's the case, repay us double the price we paid. Yes, either double repayment or give us the Juke Lingshan pill, otherwise we will smash Nailin mansion. Nailin only felt a buzzing in his ears. His heart was full of panic and anxiety. But he still didn't believe that his Juke Lingshan pill would go wrong. Therefore, he picked up the red medicinal pill and stuffed it into his mouth. However, after the medicinal pills entered the body, the original clear and mellow vitality did not appear as usual. Has Juke Lingshan pill really lost its effectiveness?
But why?
I obviously used the same refining method. Nailin murmured. Impossible, it's impossible for it to be ineffective. How could it be possible? Is this a fake Juke Lingshan pill? Yes, it must be fake. This is not my Juke Lingshan pill. Before Nailin had finished speaking, Elder Han waved his hand and slapped his face ruthlessly. Nailin was caught off guard. He rolled on the ground hard, knocking his head on the pillar. Blood was streaming out, making him look very embarrassed. Elder Han looked at him viciously. Nailin, you actually accused me of fooling you with a fake Juke Lingshan pill. Are you tired of living? Among the people who came to complain, one of them mingled with the gangsters. When he saw that Nailin was being slapped by Elder Han like nobody, and he noticed that Nailin couldn't take out any real Juke Lingshan pill, he suddenly shouted. Nailin even dared to slander Elder Han. It seems that he is not ready to compensate us for our losses. We might as well smash the Nailin family to express our anger. That's right. Who knows if Nailin can produce the real Juke Lingshan pill tomorrow. If he can't take it out for 1 day, we'll smash for 1 day. If he can't take it out for 2 days, we will smash for 2 days until he compensates us for the loss. This person's proposal immediately got everyone's response. Martial artists generally had storage devices. Of course, they knew that Nailin wouldn't put too many valuable treasures in the mansion. But since they were fooled by Nailin with fake medicinal pills, it would be good to vent their anger by smashing his house. Nailin was having a chest pain being slapped by Elder Han. Seeing this group of people swarming into his home and smashing everything, he suddenly felt blood surged from his chest and spewed another mouthful of blood. Stop it. You guys stop it. The group didn't go to the backyard. They just smashed the front yard of the Nailin mansion and returned to the main hall with satisfaction. Elder Han looked at Nailin condescendingly and said coldly, Nailin, I will give you 3 more days. If you can hand over the real Juke Lingshan pill, then I'll forget it. Otherwise, don't blame me Shueyu sect for being rude. After speaking, he walked away angrily with Shueyu sect's disciples. The 6th prince also walked up to Nailin and looked at him contemptuously. It turns out that the name of the #1 miracle healer in the Jinling kingdom is fake. If you can't hand over Juke Lingshan pill this time, I will report to my father. Your miracle healer title will be removed from now on. After 6th prince left, other sects and families ran over to sneer at Nailin. The gangster martial artist even spat at Nailin before he swayed away. Nalan stumbled into the messy living room. His body was shaking. Nalan had enjoyed glory for a lifetime. He had never suffered such humiliation. Juka pill. Why does Juka pill fail? Nalan stood up abruptly from the ground. Ignoring the pain in his chest, he hurriedly walked toward his study room. After entering the underground cave, he saw the figure still curled up on the ground wearing a helmet. Nalan thought of the humiliation he had just received, and anger rose from his heart.
Why?
Why does Juka pill fail? Son of bitch, are you trying to mess with me? Nalan whipped the medicine man in the cave. As the barbed whip hit on the medicine man, he screamed in pain. But Nalan still didn't feel relieved. He stepped forward and severely stepped and broke the medicine man's calf bone. Amid the crisp breaking sound, the medicine man let out a miserable howl. The sound even made the entire iron helmet hum. Nalan finally felt a little satisfied. He threw away his whip and sneered, "You'd better pray that your blood is still useful. Otherwise, I will let you taste absolute desperation." After speaking, he took the knife and cut open the arm of the medicine man. But Nalan deliberately used spiritual power to explore this time. He found that there was indeed no strong vitality in the blood. Moreover, the scars on the arms of this medicine man should be healed in at most one night, but now after using external injury medicine, it didn't heal even after a few days. Could it be that the blood of medicine man really lose its effectiveness? No, this is absolutely impossible. Nalan took the bowl of blood unwillingly and went to the backyard. He casually grabbed a servant, fed him a deadly poison, and poured the blood of the medicine man into his mouth. However, after a few seconds, the servant rolled his eyes and vomited bubbles. He was utterly dead. At this moment, Nalan was really scared. Juka pill is the foundation of my life. If I lose Juka pill, how can I, Nalan ever be famous again? How can I gain a foothold in the Doctors Association? How can I become the first miracle healer in the Jinling Kingdom?
Why?
Why does the blood that can cure all poisons fail? Is it because that animal's special physique was squeezed too much by himself, and now it is finally worn away, it will no longer be useful? What should I do in the future? How can I refine Juka? How can I support the Nalan family? Thinking of the cruel words of Elder Han and the others and the today and the blame he was going to face tomorrow, Nalan looked terrified. He couldn't help tremble for a moment. Suddenly, the image of Enlingyue and Nalan appeared before his eyes. Enlingyue's relics. Nalan woke up suddenly. Yes, now only Enlingyue's relic can save the Nalan family. I must get it. He now had no way out. The only way was to force Nalan to hand over the prescription for the best quality pill. That's right, as long as I have the best quality pill formula like the bone muscle enhancement pill, let alone Elder Han, even the Doctors Association will treat me as an honorable guest. Until then, do I still need Juka pill? Thinking of this, Nalan immediately clapped. Soon several guards dressed in black appeared in front of him. These people were the dead soldiers raised by the Nalan family. Although some of them were dead in order to spy Nalan some time ago, many of them still followed Nalan. Nalan said with a sullen face, "Tie up that bitch and bring her to my study room. Everything must be brought here, including her maids and her belongings." The guard quickly lowered his head. "Yes, master." Looking at the direction of the guard disappearing, Nalan mouth showed a sinister smile. After about 15 minutes, Nalan, who was sitting in the study room, turned around when he heard the sound. The door of the study room was pushed open, and Nalan and her maid named Xingwan appeared at the door of the study room. But to Nalan surprise, Nalan was not tied up. She walked into his study room with a smile instead. Nalan face changed uncertainly, and he said solemnly, "Where are the people I sent to bring you here?" Hashi smiled without answering him. It was Qingwan who replied coldly, "Is Nalanjingza talking about the stinky man who wanted to control us as he entered Xianu house? Sorry, I see that he had ill intention, so I have beheaded him." "You, how dare you?" Nalanjingza's face was extremely ugly. He was looking at Qingwan with fear. Hashi didn't even look at Nalanjingza at all. She calmly found a place to sit down. Then she said, "Master Nalan, what do you want to call me here? I'll leave if there is nothing." Nalanjingza looked at him sullenly. His eyes were like a poisoned sword. "Are you still reluctant to hand over the things?" Hashi smiled slightly. "I'm sorry, I don't understand what Master Nalan wants me to handle." Nalanjingza sneered. "Nalan Hashi, you can still be stubborn, but when you see him, you will know that you have no capital to play tricks with me." "Oh." Hashi raised his eyebrows. "Then I'm really curious. What does Master Nalan want me to see?" Nalanjingza squinted, got up and walked to the array. He casually did something at the array, and the door of the secret room was opened. The figure who was tied behind the secret room's door fell down. Nalanjingza pulled him out mercilessly, stepped on his chest, and looked at Hashi with a sneer. "Do you know who this person is?" The person he stepped on was covered with dirt. This man was wearing an iron helmet on his head. His hands were covered with scars. A huge scar on his hands was still bleeding. The leg bones of his 2 lower legs were fractured. When he crawled, the injury made him so painful that he kept groaning in pain. Hashi's expression was calm. She did not answer his words, but she slowly asked, "Compared with who this person is, I'm more curious about who is my biological father." "Father? How do you all have father? You all are illegitimate child." Once someone asked this question, Nalanjingza could no longer maintain his original calmness. He almost roared hysterically. And Lingyue, that flirtatious woman, was pregnant when she came to Nalan Mansion. She even used the pill formula to threaten me to protect her. She let me hide her in the Nalan family as my concubine. Humph. Since she has become my concubine, she is naturally my woman. Why didn't she let me touch her? She even cautiously alienated from me. Every day, she pretended to be aloof and inviolable in front of me.
Pooey. Bitch.
Who knows how many men she had slept with. Nalanjingza became more and more excited as she spoke. "Ha! If that bitch knew that her 2 children were miserably tortured by me, she must regret not submitting to me and become my woman. Isn't Lingyue really dead?" Hashi's voice was clear and fair-sounding, but it inexplicably had a charming power. "How did she die?" "Of course she is dead." Nalanjingza yelled. "That damn bitch. She didn't even leave her corpse after she died. I don't know where the pill formulas were hidden. I searched through every place of Xianu house, even severely wounded Mammy Chen and searched her soul, but failed to find the location of those pill formulas. And Lingyue, since you are ruthless and unrighteous, don't blame me for abusing your son and daughter, making them worse than an animal." Ha 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 ha. As Nalanjingza said, he looked at Hashi, and he suddenly increased the strength of his feet. The bone-fracturing sound could be heard, then it was followed by a more miserable howl. It was obvious that his rib was broken by Nalanjingza. Nalanjingza chuckled and said, "Nalan Hashi, don't you want to know who he is?" Hashi looked at him calmly. There was no sadness or joy in her eyes, but there was a touch of mockery. This kind of ridicule made Nalanjingza irritated, and he sternly said, "Didn't you know that Nalanzian pretended to be your brother? Then do you know where is your real brother?" "Ha ha ha, I can tell you today, this hideous person at my feet who lives a miserable life is your younger brother, the real Nalanzian." Nalanjingza pursed his lips as if recalling something. His eyes were gleaming. "You must be curious why he became like this? Do you remember that when you were young, you had a high fever because of Faciua's teasing? Nalanzian saw you were thirsty and wanted to find water to feed you, but the servants didn't listen to him. He couldn't find water, so he had to cut off his wrist and feed you with his blood. Who knows, his blood detoxified the poison in your body and restore you to the original state." Nalanjingza's words finally changed Hashi's expression slightly. She searched through the memory of the original owner and finally found that impression in the distant fuzzy corner. The little immature child kept calling her sister in her ear, and she was confused and could not say anything. She just felt her chest was burning and her throat was thirsty, so she could not stop muttering, "Water." Then, she felt a refreshing sweet liquid flowing into her dry lips, slowly nourishing her injured internal organs and letting the tormenting pain slowly disappear. That was my brother's blood. It turned out that Xiao-Qi in this life was the same as her brother in the previous life, desperately protecting her sister, even if he had to sacrifice everything. Nalan Jingze saw that her face was moved, and he was very satisfied. He continued, "He saved you back then, but because he saved you, I discovered that his blood has such a magical effect. I use his blood as the main material to refine the Juke pill, which also made my Nalan family standing in the position of the 4 great families in the Jinling kingdom. Nalan Heshi, you can say that your brother was imprisoned by me for 12 years because of you. Don't you want to save him?" Heshi nodded and said, "Want." This simple one-word answer made Nalan Jingze overjoyed. This bitch, Nalan Heshi, had persisted for so many days. Now, seeing his brother, she finally decided to compromise. "Since you want to save your brother, then immediately exchange him with your mother's relics. As long as you give me all the pill formulas and treasures left by Enlingyue, I will let him go. How about that?" Seeing Heshi took a step forward, her maid also followed up. Nalan Jingze hurriedly said, "Don't try to take your brother from my hand forcibly. I have fed him the poison. If it isn't cured in half an hour, he will die horribly. I know you are capable of curing poison. However, do you really want to bet it with your younger brother's life and his saving grace to you?" She stopped and said with a sneer, "You said he is my younger brother, then he is my younger brother? How do I know if you fake another Nalan Ziyun to lie to me?" "Humph, you are really stubborn." Nalan Jingze sneered, "You don't believe that he is your brother? Well, I will show you his true face now. You are twins. Although you two don't look exactly the same, his appearance is at least similar to you. When you see it, you know I'm not lying to you." As he said, he quickly took out the key and opened the iron helmet. The helmet fell to the ground with a bang, and under the helmet was a face with disheveled hair. Nalan Jingze didn't even look at that face. Instead, he grabbed his hair and forced him to raise his head toward Heshi. He laughed and said, "Nalan Heshi, see clearly. Is this your brother? You two are Enlingyue's illegitimate children. You two look very similar to her. You can recognize this at a glance." That face clearly appeared in front of Heshi and Qingwan. Although the face was dirty, the facial features could still be clearly recognized. Qingwan saw that person's face clearly, and she couldn't help but chuckle and laughed. "You said this is the younger brother of our miss? You said this person looks similar to our miss? Nalan Jingze, are you getting crazy?" Nalan Jingze was startled, but he didn't realize what Qingwan meant. Heshi smiled coldly. She launched the invisible needle at the acupuncture point of a medicine man. Suddenly, the medicine man cried out in horror with a hoarse voice, "Father, Father, it's me. I'm Ziyun. Father, save me." "What?" Nalan Jingze suddenly loosened his hand when he heard the voice, and the person he was holding fell to the ground with a bang. After the impact, the ribs that had been fractured immediately pierced into his internal organs, causing a stern cry. Nalan Jingze lowered his head in a tremble, and he saw the face of his beloved son Nalan Ziyun. His face at this time could no longer be described as pale, but it was filled with the gloominess of death. Because the lobes of the lungs were punctured by the ribs, he kept spraying bleeding foam in his mouth, and his breathing became weaker and weaker. His life was about to die. "Ziyun.
Ziyun.
How could it be you?" Nalan Jingze trembled all over, trying to help her son, but the hand that was stretched out seemed stiff and frozen. He seemed to have lost his strength. Finally, he took out a healing medicinal pill and wanted to feed it into Nalan Ziyun's mouth. Ziyun, you won't die. Father won't let you die. You are father's most beloved son. Nalan Ziyun's eyes were full of fear and anticipation. He opened his mouth and fed him the medicinal pill. Father is right, I will not die. I still have a great and bright future. I still want a revenge on that vicious woman Nalan Hishi. I still have so many things to do. As the medicinal pill was swallowed into his abdomen, the cold that was about to take away his vitality faded away. Nalan Ziyun's face showed a smile of surviving a disaster. Nalan Jingza also breathed a sigh of relief. He was about to ask people to come in and carry the young master down to recuperate. Suddenly, Nalan Ziyun's face twisted. Immediately afterward, a purple-green gas filled his cheeks, causing him to twitch and twist. Ziyun. There was a clear look of panic and fear on Nalan Jingza's face. He recognized it. This is the symptom of the poison I fed Nalan Ziyun. But isn't there obviously still half an hour before it triggers? There is no cure for this deadly poison, except Zheke Lingshan pill. He initially had no intention of letting Nalan Heshi's younger brother live. He initially wanted to kill Enling Yue's illegitimate children getting her relics. But now, this poison was going to kill his most beloved son.
No.
I don't want to die. Father, save me, save me, save. Nalan Ziyun's hand tightly pinched into Nalan Jingza's wrist, desperately trying to ask for help and want to talk. However, a mouthful of blood surged out, and he rolled his eyes. In the end, his heart stopped beating, and he became a dead body. Nalan Jingza looked at Nalan Ziyun staring blankly with the unwillingness to die, only to feel a buzz in his head. He stood up suddenly and rushed toward Heshi frantically. Bitch, it's you. You killed my son. I want you to pay with your life. The spiritual power of Nalan Jingza skyrocketed, but his movements were disordered. He didn't even cast the flying sword. Qing Wan snorted contemptuously. She stepped forward to fight with Nalan Jingza. Although Nalan Jingza was a martial artist of the gold core stage, he had been immersed in pill refining and the urge to seek glory and prosperity for many years. How could he have time to improve his cultivation? Qing Wan was also of the gold core stage, but she was carefully and secretly cultivated in the King of Hell mansion. The difference in power could be seen at a glance. After just a few minutes, Nalan Jingza was knocked to the ground by Qing Wan. He was vomiting blood, with a pale face. He stared at Heshi fiercely and yelled hysterically, Bitch, do you think you can escape from the Nalan mansion? Even if I will lose Enling Yue's relics, I must let you bitch die horribly. I will use your flesh and blood to pay for my son Ziyun's life. As soon as Nalan Jingza spoke, he suddenly crushed the SOS inscribed Jade Slip. Qing Wan glanced at Heshi with a solemn expression, and she was also holding a jade slip. Miss, do you want me to summon Master now? Ahem. Why do you say like your master is someone who can simply summon here and there? Heshi coughed and shook her head. No need. I can feel that the range of this inscribed jade slip is not far away. He probably just summoned the elders and guards of the Nalan mansion. This is just right. It saves me the trouble to eliminate the root of the problem. Now I can solve it once and for all. Qing Wan was extremely convinced by Heshi now. She no longer doubts Heshi's words. As expected, just as Heshi said, after a while, the people of the Nalan mansion appeared and surrounded the study room. Among them was a master of the gold core stage, Nalan Xingming. Most of the others were martial artists of the Meridian stage. Their strength should not be underestimated. As soon as Nalan Jingza saw Nalan Xingming, he immediately shouted, Third Elder, Nalan Heshi is so rebellious that she wanted to kill her father. Her brother, Nalan Ziyun, also died in this cruel woman's hand. Third Elder, you must not let him go. When Nalan Xingming received the call, he was taken aback by the sight in front of him. He originally wanted to break through to the advanced level of the gold core stage behind closed doors, but he unexpectedly received Nalan Jingza's call for help. He thought it was a powerful enemy invading Nalan family. Who knows? What he saw was Nalan Heshi, the little girl, beat Nalan Jingza until he vomited blood. He frowned and said, Nalan Hashi, you are so rebellious. You actually hurt your father? You still don't kneel down and admit your mistakes? Hashi smiled lightly. Her eyes were full of contempt, but she said nothing. Nalan Jingza hurriedly shouted, Third Elder. This Nalan Hashi colluded with the outsider Shiyu. The maid next to her was sent by Shiyu. She has great ability. Even I'm not her opponent. This animal gave all of Enlingyue's relics to Shiyu in exchange for Shiyu's help. The best quality pills and pill formulas sold in Xingda Hall should have belonged to our Nalan family. What? Is what you said true? Now, let alone Nalan Xingming, the rest of the Nalan family were all shocked. After the shock, they felt incredible ecstasy. Xingda Hall was now popular in the Jinling Kingdom today. Even the Xin family of Qingxia sect treated the little shopkeeper in Xingda Hall respectfully.
Why?
Wasn't it because of the powerful and mysterious best quality pill that Xingda Hall could provide? If those best quality pills belonged to us, wouldn't our Nalan family? The thought of this made Nalan Xingming and the others excited. Several martial artists at the peak of the meridian stage surrounded Hashi and Qing Wan in the center. Nalan Xing stared at Hashi with a hot gaze. He said in a deep voice, Little girl, I know that your father was not good enough for you before and made you wronged, but you are the people of the Nalan family. Before Nalan Xingming had finished speaking, Hashi had already made a long sigh. She said slowly as if she was bored, Enough with your nonsense already. I was willing to chatter with you, because I was having a good mood, but now I'm already impatient. So, you guys should all die. You. Nalan Xingming was interrupted, and he was furious when he heard such a rude declaration from Hashi. Nalan Jingza had already eaten medicinal pills and stood up. He said bitterly, Third Elder, this slut is relying on the maid next to her. This maid is indeed strong in cultivation. She definitely has the level of the gold core stage. Isn't it just a gold core stage? Could it be that I, Nalan Xingming, would be afraid of her? Nalan Xingming coldly snorted, I'm going to hold her maid. You guys go and control Nalan Hashi. Before we get Enlingyue's relics, you can't let her die. Qing Wan glanced at the group of people surrounding the two with a stern look. Her eyes were full of contempt, just a bunch of useless people. Only the old man at the intermediate level of the gold core stage is still worth fighting. Miss, let me deal with the old man first. No need. Hashi took out Li Shui's sword faintly. There was a clear and beautiful voice like a wind sings. I don't want to waste time with them. I'll deal with all of them at once. As soon as she spoke, the purple vines suddenly rose from her body. The vines were like tornadoes. Wherever they went, they smashed the walls and roof of the entire study room. The flying stones and rubble fell one after another on scattered Nalan Jingza and others, but none of them fell on Hashi. Nalan Jingza and Nalan Xingming were in a panic, but they couldn't even wipe the dust off their faces. They just stared at Nalan Hashi with horror. The girl's figure was weak and didn't look pretty in appearance, but the crazy surging spiritual power was so powerful that Nalan Xingming trembled in fear. Nalan Jingza's feeling at this time was more frightened and crazier than when he saw Nalan Xian's face under the iron helmet. No, this is impossible. That was Nalan Hashi. Although he tortured her, he secretly instigated the servants to abuse her. Watching her live like a pig, he had never relaxed his surveillance on her. Nalan Hashi is so weak, so incompetent, so useless. How could she be the one in front who can exude a strong spirit pressure and make me feel desperate? Who are you? You're not Nalan Hashi. Who are you? Nalan Jingza let out a hoarse scream, as if to convince the others and himself. Hashi smiled softly, and the purple vines instantly got back into her body, as if they were conscious. She looked at Nalan Jingza coldly and sneered cruelly at the father whom Nalan Hashi admired and looked forward to. Of course I'm Nalan Hashi, my dear father. You've been monitoring me for 17 years. Don't you even know me now? After a pause, her voice suddenly became cold. The voice was clearly pleasant to ears, but it was strangely cold, like it was from hell. I'm Nalan Hishi, but I'm not the original Nalan Hishi. The original Nalan Hishi has been forced to death by you animals. Now, standing in front of you is Nalan Hishi, who has crawled back from hell. Are you ready to repay your debt? Li Shui's sword rose to the sky after she spoke. Just before Nalan Jingza and Nalan Xingming could react, swords rained down from the sky. Flying flower sword rain. Thousands of arrows pierced the heart. Even in breaking Spirit Mountain, Hashi's move could easily kill a rank 5 magical beast. What's more, after experiencing the battle of breaking Spirit Mountain and cultivated behind closed doors, her current strength was no longer comparable to her previous strength. The rain of swords all over the sky was like death taking away their souls. Before these martial artists could react, the swords had penetrated their bodies directly. Some people even looked at Hashi with a contemptuous expression on their faces, thinking that she was just a little girl, so what if she was powerful? However, before their expressions changed, they felt a sharp pain. Then they completely lost their consciousness. In just a few seconds, the study room was razed to the ground. The martial artists who originally stood here around Hishi had countless holes on their bodies. Except for Nalan Jingza and Nalan Xingming, a dozen martial artists of the Meridian stage died. Nalan Jingza was trembling all over. At this moment, he was looking at Hashi like he saw a horrifying ghost. Could it be that Nalan Hashi really climbed back from hell to take revenge? Am I really going to die in the hands of Nalan Hashi today? No. I don't want to die. Thinking of death, Nalan Jingza trembled. All his hatred on Nalan Hishi turned into fear and a desire for survival. His knees softened, and he kneeled to the ground, kowtowing toward Hishi. Hishi, I was wrong. Father was wrong for not taking good care of you. However, for the sake of saving your mother and letting you live for 17 years, please forgive me. Spare my life. Hashi sneered slightly and turned her gaze at Nalan Xingming. How would Nalan Xingming be afraid of this little girl? However, after the previous massacre plus the pair of gorgeous phoenix eyes, he felt a chill down his spine. He staggered back for one step. But this place was originally a study room after all. There were rubble and stones everywhere. With this stagger, Nalan Xingming tripped over a boulder and fell on the ground. Seeing Hashi took a step toward him, he immediately screamed, "Don't kill me! Don't kill me! All this is done by Nalan Jingza. It has nothing to do with me. I don't even know, and Lingua left some relics behind. Please let me go." Hashi pursed her lips and was about to speak. Little golden dragon suddenly jumped out and hovered high in the sky. He smiled at the two people who were begging embarrassedly, "You all want my boss to let you go? It's not impossible." Nalan Jingza and Nalan Xingming heard what little golden dragon said, looked at Hishi, and saw that she did not refute. Their faces suddenly showed joy. Little golden dragon sneered, "You can live, but that's only one of you. As long as you kill each other, I will represent the boss and let one of you survive. How about that?" Nalan Jingza immediately looked at Nalan Xingming upon hearing this. Nalan Xingming's face was also distorted. He stared at Hashi fiercely. "Nalan Hashi, don't go too far. I'm a martial artist of the gold core stage. If I risk my life to explode my gold core, you won't gain anything from it." Little golden dragon hummed and said, "Then you can blow yourself up if you dare." Nalan Xingming looked at Nalan Jingza and said bitterly, "Jingza, you and I join forces. I don't believe we can't deal with Nalan Hishi. I count to 3. Let's go together." "Okay, third elder, I will listen to you." Nalan Xingming stood up abruptly from the ground and he said, 1, 2, however, before he could speak 3, his eyes suddenly widened. He looked at his abdomen in disbelief. There was a dagger stuck in it, and the dagger was still shining with a dark purple light. The dagger was painted with poison. Nalan Xingming opened his mouth wide, looking at the person who just released the dagger. His eyes were full of anger. "Nalan Jingza, how can you?" Nalan Jingza let go of the dagger, took a step back embarrassedly, and muttered, I want to live. I want to live.
So, you must die.
Nalan Xingming, you should die for me. As he said, he looked at Heshi abruptly. He said fanatically, You see, I have killed him. Nalan Heshi, you must abide by the agreement. Spare me, spare me. Little Golden Dragon looked at Nalan Jingza's behavior, and the contempt in his eyes had turned into disgust. He turned around and landed on Heshi. He said resentfully, Boss, this kind of person has no shame at all. It's simply too abhorrent. Letting him live in the world is simply polluting the air. Why not kill him? Nalan Jingza's expression suddenly changed hearing that. He shouted hysterically, You promised me. As long as I kill Nalan Xingming, you will let me go. Nalan Heshi, you promised. Heshi coldly looked at the crazy Dr. Nalan, reached out to touch the little golden dragon, and sneered, Flying flower sword rain didn't kill you. It means I didn't want the lives of you too. Nalan Jingza was overjoyed. You will let me live. Let you live. Heshi seemed to hear the funniest joke. I just reluctant to let you die like this, otherwise. Wouldn't it be too easy on you? Nalan Jingza, have you forgotten? In that dark cave, what did you do to my brother, and how you tortured him? If I don't let you suffer the same torture and die again, how can I be willing? Nalan Jingza's eyes widened in horror. His lips opened and closed as if he wanted to speak, but he could only make a stuttering sound. After Heshi finished speaking, purple vines shot out from her wrist. No! Before Nalan Jingza finished speaking, the purple vines had entangled his hands and feet. Only a click sound could be heard. His wrists and ankles were actually broken by purple abyss vine. The intense pain caused Nalan Jingza to let out a miserable howl, but the torture was not over. Purple abyss vine hovered in the air for a while, wrapped his whole body, and suddenly a powerful magical power radiated out. Immediately afterward, Nalan Jingza wailed even more painfully. When purple abyss vine released him, he could no longer stand and could no longer use spiritual power. He could only lie on the ground softly, like a rag. Heshi walked forward slowly. She looked at Nalan Jingza's desperate and resentful eyes, and her mouth corner was lifted. Nalan Jingza, don't you like to treat others as pets and torture them as slaves or beasts? I'm now giving you a chance to experience this kind of life. Your hands and feet have been severed, and the meridians throughout your body have been severely damaged. You can no longer cultivate and use martial arts. However, your dantian is still intact. It can filter the impurities in the spirit plant elixir and crystal stone. Especially, you who have the cultivation of the gold core stage, you will for a long time and will not die easily. As long as we put you into the slave market and sell in the vessel auction, I believe countless people will rush to buy you. For the rest of your life, you will live a living hell. You'll be treated even worse than an animal. Maybe because your meridians are severed, you can't even explode your gold core. You can't even die easily from things like biting your own tongue. Nalan Jingza opened his mouth and yelled, No, no, kill me. I don't want to be a vessel. Heshi sneered, We will not kill you. The only Nalan Xingming who can kill you has just been killed by your own hands. Nalan Jingza, all your paths and endings are chosen by you. This is karma. When you did outrageous things, did you think that one day you will suffer the same things? No, no, forgive me. Wu, please forgive me. Heshi didn't go to see him again, but she just spoke to Qing Wan indifferently, ruin his face so that the person who buys him will not recognize him as Nalan Jingza, then asked Chen Bai to send him to the slave market. Yes, miss. Qing Wan took care of Nalan Jingza, then she handed the person to Chen Bai, who was lurking in the mansion before returning to Heshi. Heshi was sitting in Ling Yue's courtyard at this time, staring at the depressed scenery in the garden in a daze. Qing Wan reported in her ear, Chen Bai has asked people to disperse Nalan Mansion's subordinates. When they heard that the master of Nalan Mansion was dead, they didn't even stay for a moment. They all ran away without looking back. Hashi nodded and took a sip of the tea in her hand. Qing glanced at Mrs. Nayland, who was still in a coma in the corner of the room, and said, "Miss, what about that person?" Hashi glanced at her and said lightly, "Give her the antidote. Throw her out of Nayland Mansion and let her perish on her own." "Miss, you don't kill her? I heard she bullied you too." Hashi laughed. "Morong Yaru and Nayland Feishua are nothing more than poor things sacrificed by the Nayland family. Nayland Feishua thought that she can be arrogant and can trample Nayland Hashi under her feet, but in fact she doesn't know she is just a pawn used by Nayland Jingza to monitor and test Nayland Hashi. The same is true for Mrs. Nayland. Now that these two chess pieces have lost their effect, they have been completely abandoned by the Nayland family. Although I hate them for humiliating Nayland Hashi at the beginning, they have now received their due retribution. Being sold and abandoned by the people closest to them and lost everything. Such punishment is enough for them." Qing nodded again and again. A smile appeared on his face. "Miss, don't worry, I understand." The two of them talked, and no one paid attention to Mrs. Nayland, who was unconscious in the corner. So they didn't see that water stains flowed down from Mrs. Nayland's bloody face, which made the messy face even hideous. One night later, the people in Yenjing City were horrified to find that the Nayland family, which was originally one of the 4 major families, was completely empty overnight. Several houses inside collapsed. The front and rear yards were smashed into a mess. All valuable things were messed up and left on the ground. The most frightening thing was that no one can be seen in the entire huge mansion. The streets were full of people discussing this matter. Thinking of the extinctions of Morong family and Ouyang family that happened recently, now it was the Nayland family's turn. It made the martial artists feel uneasy. Why is Nayland Mansion destroyed? Isn't Dr. Nayland's reputation always very good? Who would have trouble with him? I heard that many martial artists from sects and aristocratic families rushed into the Nayland family yesterday. Everyone was fierce and vicious. It seemed like they went to reason with Dr. Nayland. I heard that the Joeen Lingshan pill that Dr. Nayland sold is fake. It has no effect at all.
What?
Juku Lingshan pill was promoted as a magical medicine. How much benefit did the Nayland family get with this medicinal pill? How could it be fake? If Juku Lingshan pill is really fake, then it makes sense for the Nayland family to be eliminated. I think it must be done by those who were deceived by Dr. Nayland. This Yenjing City is really a scary place. There is only one Huangfu family left in the 4 major families. Will all the Huangfu family be destroyed? My cousin is still serving as a guard inside. Otherwise, I think I still tell him to leave early. On the streets of Yenjing City, everyone was talking about it. At this time, Hashi was standing alone in the most beautiful waterwood domain in the sealed dragon domain, stunned. In front of her was Mammy Chen's tombstone. Beside Mammy Chen's tombstone, there was also a small circle of stone monuments without a name. What placed in this tombstone was the old clothes of Nayland Hashi. Hashi stretched out her hand, gently pressed it on the tombstone, and said softly, "Nayland Hashi, you will surely meet your mother and Mammy Chen who loves you in the afterworld, right? You stay and live a good life with them from now on. Choose a better life to reincarnate in your next life. In this world, all the people you cared for, I will take care of them for you." Above the tombstone, the willow leaf fluttered gently with the breeze, bringing a fresh breath, as if to tell Nayland Hashi's gratitude and blessings. Hashi reached out and grabbed the willow leaf that was fluttering in front of her. As she was about to shove it away, she suddenly felt that she was embraced in a warm and broad embrace. Nangong Yu's deep and magnetic voice sounded in her ears. "Sheer, escape to this sealed dragon domain alone without telling me. You knew that there are many enchantments in this sealed dragon domain, and I can't enter without Sheer's permission. Are you intending to run away from me? And really disobedient." Hashi turned around, pressed his chest in annoyance, and chuckled. "Your Royal Highness, King of Hell, is there any place in the Miluo continent that can stop your King of Hell? This sealed dragon domain's enchantments are strong, but I think it is impossible to stop you, King of Hell, right? Didn't you just come in without my permission? Nangongyu grabbed her hand, put it to his lips, and kissed it. He then smiled and said, as a man who can match Sheer, of course, I must be strong enough. Shameless. Hashi blushed and pushed him away. Since you have come in, why not I take you to stroll around sealed dragon domain? Wait. Nangongyu pulled her back into his arms, pointed to the tombstone and asked, Sheer, whose tombstone is this? Why not write the name? Hashi glanced at the small tombstone without words. She said softly with a serene expression, It's an old friend of mine. Nangongyu frowned, clasped her chin, and turned her face to him. What kind of old friend? I don't even know. Hashi smiled slightly, and I can't say it, at least not yet. Purple light gleamed in the clear and beautiful phoenix eyes. It seemed to bury endless vicissitudes and the vast world. Nangongyu looked at the beautiful girl in front of him, feeling that she was far away from him inexplicably, as if she would slip away from his hand at any time. He suddenly reached out and hugged her into his arms, and he whispered in a low voice, Sheer, I cannot ask your secrets, but promise me, never run away from me. Hashi was silent for a long time, and she hugged him back. Nangongyu, as long as you don't betray me and abandon me, I will never leave you. The two got their sweet moment for a while, then Hashi began to take Nangongyu strolling around in the sealed dragon domain. Although Nangongyu had been to sealed dragon domain's secret territory a long time ago, all the ultimate deadly enchantments were activated by the time. Each place he went into was a life-threatening crisis. Even if he wanted to visit it properly, there was no way. But now that Hashi had become the master of this secret realm, the thing was different. Every plant, tree, enchantment, and even ferocious beast were under Hashi's control. Nangongyu held Hashi's hand as they wandered among the beautiful scenery of green mountains and green waters. Hashi couldn't help turning her head and asked, Did you know long ago that I'm the new owner of the sealed dragon domain's secret territory? Nangongyu nodded without hesitation. He even put up a proud expression of, Your man is just smart on his face. Hashi laughed, but she couldn't help being curious. When did you know? Stupid Sheer. Nangongyu stretched out his hand and scratched the tip of her nose, and he said with a slight smile, When others lost their treasures in the secret realm, you took out so many treasures in the secret realm to give to me. You even gave me the imitation version of Sealed Dragon Sword to me. Weren't you telling me that you are the new master of the Sealed Dragon Domain? Hashi blushed immediately. She was worried about Nangongyu's safety at that time. She really didn't think so much. Nangongyu liked her inadvertent trust to him very much. He held her and kissed her several times until Hashi got angry and pushed him away. Of course, it was not only Hashi in the Sealed Dragon Domain, but there were also many slaves purchased by Shisan. These slaves were originally born miserably, but after following Hashi, they enjoyed a life like heaven. Especially those who had no cultivation and were treated like trash, their cultivation was soaring at a crazy speed. This made them happy and joyful in their hearts, and they worshipped Hashi as a god. Now, the servants in the Sealed Dragon Domain occasionally saw Nangongyu and Hashi walked by. They only saw the handsome and unparalleled looks of the male and the charming, beautiful female. The attitude of intimacy made people just think they are a perfect pair. They couldn't help feeling delighted that their miss could find such a suitable man. So, in just half a day, the news that their miss and her husband were walking together in the Sealed Dragon Domain together spread throughout the secret realm. Except for Xiaoli, Shijia, and others who were cultivating in a retreat. Even Ouyang Haoshuan, who had just recovered from his injuries, knew about it. Hashi and Nangongyu passed by the bottom of the valley, where they encountered the Dapeng bird. Hashi looked at the familiar scene and couldn't help but smile. The Nangongyu whom I met in the beginning was probably the most desolate Nangongyu I have ever seen. Nangongyu squeezed her cheek. His voice had the hint of a smile, but it sounded a little unwilling and depressed. The one who entered sealed dragon domain's secret territory that day was actually a clone of my fundamental essence. Its cultivation level was only equivalent to the initial stage of nascent soul. If it was in a real fight, it might not be able to defeat Feng Yunjing. This was the second time He heard him mention fundamental essence's clone. She couldn't help but look up at him in surprise. Nangongyu suddenly stretched out his hand and hugged He tightly, his face full of annoyance. I didn't expect you to enter sealed dragon domain's secret territory, let alone that you would conflict with Feng family. If I knew it, I would definitely use a stronger clone so that it is strong enough to protect you in the secret realm, and you wouldn't hurt as well. He remembered everything that happened outside the purple golden palace that day. She snorted coldly. Not powerful enough? You obviously saw Feng Lingyin couldn't move. Thinking of the scenes at that time, He's heart still had the long-lost hostility and depression. Her figure flickered, and she brought Nangongyu to the Greenwood domain, where the purple golden palace inherited. This place had changed a lot now. Of course, the purple golden palace had long since disappeared, but now there were some houses in the original purple golden palace. Although these houses were not gorgeous and exquisite, they were connected in a circle. They looked indescribably warm and elegant. But He looked at the scene in front of her without a smile on her face. What she remembered was an unpleasant past. The past was like a fishbone stuck in her throat. It wasn't that she still cared about Nangongyu's attitude at the time. After all, the relationship between the two was far less intimate than it was now. What she cared about was that Nangongyu turned coldly to heal Feng Lianying at that time. Was it because he believed Feng Lianying's words and regarded He as a despicable person who did dirty tricks behind the scenes? That day, Feng Lianying and I took the Purple Golden Palace inheritance test together, and she failed. But when I accepted the inheritance, she sneak-attacked me. If it weren't for Little Egg and Little Golden Dragon risking their lives to save me, if it weren't for Zhou Yanan and Gu Lu Feng rushing here by the time, I might have died in Feng Lianying's hands. Nangongyu's body trembled suddenly. He stretched out his hand to hug her tightly, and he said in a hoarse voice, "Sheer, stop talking." He smiled faintly, her expression full of relief. I always don't like to explain, but Nangongyu, you are different after all, so I'm willing to tell you the thoughts in my heart. That day, I made a narrow escape from Feng Lianying's hands. Then you came. I thought you would choose to protect me and believe me, but you chose to stand beside Feng Lianying and show me a ruthless figure of your back. You even wanted to kill Gu Lu Feng, but you never thought that I would have died in Feng Lianying's hands if Gu Lu Feng didn't come. He was my savior. The hands that Nangongyu hugged her trembled slightly. His eyes seemed to be filled with emotions like countless stormy waves. His voice became hoarse and low as if it contained countless regrets, pity and love. Sheer, I was wrong. I was dazzled by jealousy at that time. Seeing you and Gu Lu Feng together, seeing you whispered softly to Gu Lu Feng, I was going crazy. Feng Lianying, I never had feelings for her, but at that time I sent too few people into the valley, and the strength of the Feng family was too strong. I was afraid they would harm you. I only thought I couldn't offend them. Sheer, I have never loved other people like you, so I don't know how to deal with such a turbulent love. Sometimes the feelings and possessiveness that are tumbling in my heart even make me afraid. I'm afraid that I will hurt you and scare you away from me. He said what she had hidden in her heart for a long time, and she felt relieved. Hearing his incoherent confession at this time, she couldn't help but laugh. Nangongyu, why are you aggrieved like I bullied you? It's fine. I'm just revisiting the old place, and I was just touched by my emotions. Let's not discuss this topic anymore. Nangongyu didn't let go of her, but he hugged her tighter. Sheer, I really can't. Before Nangongyu ended his sentence, He pushed him away. Her face was full of shame. Her gaze was looking not far ahead. Her tone was lower due to guilty conscience and embarrassment, but she still tried to maintain her calm. Ouyang Haoshuan, when did you stand there? Hearing this, Nangongyu immediately removed the surging love and affection in his eyes and looked coldly to the side. They saw a young man wearing a white brocade. He had with slanted eyebrows and star eyes, and he was tall and straight, but his face was pale and haggard. Nangongyu recognized him almost at a glance, Ouyang Haoshuan, the only son of the Ouyang family. But just because he recognized him, Nangongyu's eyes showed an unbelievable look. The man in front of him looked exactly like Ouyang Haoshuan, but he was totally different from the Ouyang Haoshuan he had in mind. After his meridians were severed, and he had experienced all the joys and sorrows of life for more than 1 year, Ouyang Haoshuan's temperament had become introverted and gloomy. But the man in front of him couldn't be just described as gloomy. His whole body was covered with thick darkness, and his eyes were as deep as stagnant water. There was only endless darkness in there. Ouyang Haoshuan was even closer to darkness as compared to him who cultivated in the dark spiritual power. It was as if the person standing in front of him was not an individual, but the evil Shura climbing up from hell. Moreover, if he remembers correctly, wasn't Ouyang Haoshuan's cultivation a few months ago was only at the intermediate level of the gold core, right? But now, not to mention that his cultivation was close to the peak of the gold core stage, there was also the faint fire spiritual power emanating from his body that made Nangongyu feel a little scruple. He frowned slightly, and his eyes on Ouyang Haoshuan were full of scrutiny. Ouyang Haoshuan was also looking at him. The look in his eyes was unwavering, but it brought a faint hint of inspecting and ice-cold. The cold and gloomy aura exuded from the eyes, making Nangongyu feel unspeakably depressed. He had told Nangongyu about General Ouyang's death by Feng Yunjing, including Ouyang Haoshuan's recognition of her as his master. She just concealed the fact that Ouyang Haoshuan had fire element spirit pearl in his body. After all, according to her master, fire element spirit pearl was too rare and precious. It was coveted by everyone else. If fire element spirit pearl was on her, she certainly didn't mind telling Nangongyu, but she couldn't expose the location of fire element spirit pearl without Ouyang Haoshuan's permission. It would only add danger to him. Although Nangongyu was mentally prepared, Ouyang Haoshuan was no longer the original Ouyang Haoshuan, but when he saw him, he was still shocked. Because of the current Ouyang Haoshuan gave him a feeling that even he couldn't see through. At this time, He finally got over. Seeing Ouyang Haoshuan remain silent, she couldn't help calling out, "Ouyang Haoshuan? Are you okay?" Ouyang Haoshuan regained his senses immediately. He put on a gentle smile and looked at He. "Don't worry, I'm completely healed." It was just this look and one sentence that suddenly turned the surprise in Nangongyu's eyes into alert. He almost instinctively stretched out his hand and took He into his arms. He whispered into her ears as if to announce his authority, "Sheer, I'm bored with this place. Let's go to other places?" He blushed, only to think that Nangongyu was so rascal and shameless that even she was helpless. But she still couldn't bear to disappoint Nangongyu, so she nodded. "Ouyang Haoshuan, we'll go first, make yourself at home." She waved at Ouyang Haoshuan, then she was going to bring Nangongyu to another secret domain. Suddenly, she thought of something. She smiled and said, "Oh, right, since your injury is healed, I will take you out in 2 days. Although the Foam family people are looking for you everywhere now, it's fine now. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.